Hey everyone, what's going on? Reece here. Today in this video, I want to go over hiring for specialist roles, and I'm really going to be showing how to hire a beast media buyer. We're not looking for a regular media buyer that's not going to get good results. We're only looking for the people that actually know the platform inside and out, whether that's Facebook in my scenario, or TikTok, or Snapchat, or Google, or something entirely different. Depends what it is, but in here, we're going to be talking about hiring media buyers and exactly how I've gone about it. So the first thing that we need to cover here is really taking a look back and thinking about what we're looking for. Now, when I started up my job post, I knew a few different things that I knew for a fact. Now, when it came to experience, I knew that I wanted at least $100,000 minimum in ad spend. I wasn't too bothered about where they're spending it in terms of which niche or industry, but I'm mostly concerned about where they're spending it in terms of the platform. So I wanted to make sure that this was 100,000 at least on Facebook or Instagram, because ultimately that's the platform we're going to be using. And logic says that if somebody spent more money, they have more experience in terms of actually maneuvering that money. And most importantly, because of the type of brands that I work with, where this year going onwards, we want to be taking brands that are open to scaling upwards of 20,000 a month. It was very important to make sure that somebody can manage higher ad spend. And to be honest, 100,000 is not a lot. If they're managing a few clients, this is something that you can achieve in a month or so. But essentially, I just wanted somebody that has a decent amount of ad spend. I'm not looking for somebody that's been in the game for 10 years or so. Because to be honest, if somebody's been around for 10 years, they probably have some bad habits. I know that I've probably got some bad habits when it comes to advertising. And if somebody's newer, there is the benefit that they will bring more to the table in terms of an open mind. But there's also the fact that if somebody's got experience, then obviously there's more practical knowledge that they can bring to the table. So just something to keep in mind. You want to balance between a lot of experience, but not too much experience that it just clouds things and just makes it all blurry. The next thing here is that they're happy to do whatever it is that you would like to do, whatever it is that's your service or the offer that you offer your clients. So for us, we do Facebook ads and some Google ads depending on the client. But the most important thing is that people are going to do whatever it takes to get the results. And the media buyer that I ended up bringing on was somebody who was not afraid to go out and create. He's got more experience in lead gen than he does in e-com. But one of the examples he gave me is with a lead generation client. He went out of his way. He created a landing page. He created an ebook. He wrote the ebook, like a bunch of different things. Now, ultimately, I want somebody that focuses on media buying because that is what the position is for. But when I'm sitting there listening to somebody telling me how much detail he went in order to get the result that the client wanted, I was really impressed to hear that. And ultimately, what you want to make sure is that they're happy to do whatever it is that's included in your service. In my case, the main thing is the media buying, but also the copywriting. The creative, we leave to the clients. We give them guidelines and guidance, but we need to be able to write really good ad copy, which is the text of the ads, and do the media buying, which is obviously everything else on the ad platform. Next here is we want them to be good with data, and I've said slightly nerdy. Now, I don't mean this in a bad way, because I consider myself a bit of a nerd. I deal with systems, I'm into business, I'm into advertising, and naturally I kind of have to be a little bit nerdy in order to do those things, which is not a bad thing. What I really mean here is somebody that's okay with looking at different conversion rates and seeing how they can improve it. Somebody that when they see a CTR of below 1% and the ROAS behaving poorly, they will look at that and say, okay, what can I do here to improve this based on the data that I'm getting? They will be looking at every stage of the funnel and they will see how they can enhance different stages based on the data that is given. And not everybody can look at data and know what to do with it. And essentially here, what I'm looking for is somebody that actually relies on the data they're given, uses it to make a decision, and then uses that data also to make enhancements to the campaign, overall improving the performance. Next here is good speaking on camera. This here is not the most important thing, but it is very important in order to maintain and improve client retention. If your media buyer is able to speak well to the clients as they should be in Loom videos or on Zoom calls, that's the most important thing when it comes to the client side, is that they're able to hold a conversation, which is the conversational part. But most importantly, when it comes to the camera, just being able to shoot, as I said, a Loom video like I am now, or when we're on a Zoom call, they're happy speaking to people and they're okay with it. It doesn't mean that they have to be extroverted. In some cases, actually, the media buyer will probably be quite introverted, and that's not a problem at all. Ultimately, it's just labels that have been given. But essentially, we just want to make sure that they are happy and comfortable speaking on camera like I am now. Next is being friendly and conversational. Now, to be honest, this is like more of a personal thing where I just want to make sure that the person that I'm on my team with, that I'm going to speak to regularly throughout the week, is friendly, conversational, isn't going to give me a hard time. And most importantly, the friendly aspect is just, if somebody's friendly, they're more likely to be a good team member than if they're not. And if they're rude and disrespectful, just naturally, it's not somebody I want to work with anyway. The conversational aspect is good just to build our relationship and is good for company culture. But it's also the fact, again, of when it comes to the clients, making sure that they're conversational and able to articulate their feelings and thoughts well enough to actually help the client. Okay, so moving on actually to the proper meat of this, where you're going to get some real nice golden nuggets. The first step with this whole thing that we want to do is write a job post that attracts the best options. And as I've said here, just like when you're deciding, working out what your dream customer or dream client looks like, you want to write down in specific detail what you want your media buyer to look like. And things to consider include, how should they think about the process of media buying and advertising on Facebook, for example? How do they solve problems? Are they somebody that will look at it, divide it up, and look at each individual stage and work at it there? Or do they look holistically and look at it as a system? And are they aware that point A will affect point B, but then point B will also affect point A? And when it comes to the problem solving, are they someone that gets quite emotional about it and beats themselves up about it? Or do they enjoy a challenge? Do they enjoy just sitting there for a few hours trying to work something out? Because ultimately, that is what this job looks like. There are going to be times where the campaigns are not performing very well, and they need to have a sit down and really think about why they're not performing, and then they need to jump straight into testing and finding how to improve and enhance the system that they've already got or the results that they're already getting. How should they speak to clients? Now, you want to give a think a little bit more. I mentioned about being friendly and conversational. But you need to think about, what kind of communication would you expect your media buyer to have? Should they be active on Slack? Should they be comfortable doing the Loom and the Zoom videos, like I mentioned before? Or, just other ways that they should speak to the clients. So with me, my media buyer, I want them to be active on Slack. Not too active. I want them to focus on doing their work. But to be honest, I don't really speak to my clients too much anyway, and we've got incredible relationships. I set the expectation with my clients, and this is a side tangent, but I set my expectations with the clients very early that they won't hear from me very often. They will only hear from me when something's going really, really well, something's not going that great, or to wish them a good weekend. And that's pretty much it. And we have our catch-up calls, and I keep them up to date at least once a week. But aside from that, I'm not speaking to the clients on a daily basis. The next thing that we want to consider here is how do they spend their time? And what we're looking at is what are their hobbies? And that will give you a good analysis of who they are as a person more than just what they're telling you. So do they enjoy their time? Like, do they like going and visiting nature? Do they spend most of their time in front of the computer? Are they a gamer? None of these things are really big. I wouldn't say they're a red flag or anything like that. It's really just good to know what kind of person you want to work with, what kind of relationship you want to have, and what they should spend their time doing. For example, the media buyer that I ended up bringing on, he tracks his screen time probably more than I do. And it seems like he tracks a lot of other things in his life as well. And I really like that because it shows me that he's going to be good with data, but it also shows that he's happy doing it. And he's well disciplined because he's doing something, he's tracking his data. And when you track your data, obviously things get better. So that's just kind of some of the things that I've considered. And the main thing that we want to do here is write a job post that's polarizing, meaning that it will only attract the people that you actually want to work with, and it will turn off those that you don't, the people that you may want to avoid. And I'm going to jump in Facebook and actually show you the job post that I did right now. So over here on Facebook, I will include the link to this job post, but I wouldn't recommend that you copy and paste it. I would recommend that you learn from it and create something similar. Now, when I was creating this job post, I had the same things that I mentioned before in mind. I have literally spoke here. It's more of a narration, and it's about my own experience. But essentially, I've described the exact person that I would like to work with. And this is going to create a very polarizing effect where somebody's going to look at this, they're going to say, too long, can't be bothered, and they're going to move on. Or they're going to look at it, they're going to be captivated, and you don't even need to have good copywriting here. You just need to write what you're looking for. And somebody will read this, and they will either feel really compelled to reach out because they like what you've said and they feel along the same lines, or they won't. And if they don't, that's fine because they weren't a good fit. But if they do, well, this is how you get people that are actually going to be who you want them to be and really find those people that you're looking for. And read this through. As I said, I will send the link, but if you just want to pause it, you can go and pause it, have a quick read, which I would recommend you do so, and you'll probably get a better understanding of what I mean when it comes to creating a polarizing job post. Okay, the next stage is the shortlisting. And I'm going to try and speed this video up a little bit more as long as I'm giving the value that you guys need. I just don't want to make it too long. But next stage here is the shortlisting of the candidates. Now, what we're going to be doing here is using the information from when deciding your dream, this should say dream candidate, when deciding your dream candidate, and create a Google Forms that separates the good fits from those that are unlikely to be. And in a moment, I'll go ahead and actually show you the Google Forms that I use myself. You want to go through these answers column by column and total up the great answers, the okay answers, and the bad answers. You want to basically see, is the majority of the things they're saying in line with what you'd like? Or the majority of the things quoted bad answers where it's just not quite ideal? Next here are the questions in depth and personal. If you create some job post that's like mine there, where it's very polarizing and it's very different, you will be able to tell those that are personally answering the questions as opposed to just copying and pasting answers from a previous job application. So as you'll see in a moment, in the application, a lot of people said to me, they would say, I really like what you said about some of the tools, or they would highlight or quote something that I've mentioned in the job post. And that tells me that they've actually read through it, that they're actually serious because they've taken the time to write in-depth answers and they've been personal about it. It's not the fact that they're looking for quantity of job posts and they're just doing job post after job post after job post. They're actually taking their time here and really trying to make it. They're really trying to, I don't really want to use the word impress. In a certain way, they are trying to impress you. But for me, it's just the fact that they're getting off all of the information that they need in order for me to understand who they are as a person and who they would be as a media buyer. Next here is, I just want to kind of touch on why this is the best shortlisting process. And obviously this will make a lot more sense when I actually show. But the process that I'm about to show you in terms of shortlisting, it is the best process out there because it makes the decision for you. And most importantly, it makes the decision logical. It decides what is best for the business as opposed to what is just a good emotional fit. And sometimes what you will struggle with is you will get some answers that you really like and they're really impressive answers, but it's the answers that you like and it's the person that you like. It's not necessarily the best fit for the business. And the shortlisting system here will make sure that they are the best fit for the business, as well as being a good fit for you just in a working relationship. But the most important thing here is that they're good for your business and they're good for the clients that you work with. The other thing here about the shortlisting system is it's incredibly easy, it's very quick, and it helps you shortlist the near perfect fits versus the non-great fits, just the people who aren't exactly the best fit. And I'm going to go over now and actually show you this. So this is the Google Forms. They will go over it, they will read this. This is different to the job posting, but it gives a little bit more in depth of what I'm actually looking for on a very specific level. It goes through some of the things that you should have experience in, etc. So the job post is really about polarizing the two different people. The media buying is about getting the logistical side, getting the technical aspects, and finding out about their experience. So I'm not going to go through all of these questions here individually, but I will provide the link, and I'll just kind of scroll through quickly and show you some of the things. The first thing here is I literally, in terms of recruiting, I tried Facebook groups, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads. I tried some Upwork. I didn't actually end up going with Reddit, although I was going to. I didn't in the end. But anyway, here, just some information about their name, their social media, so I can see if they have a personal brand. If so, that's kind of a red flag. We don't really want anybody that's entrepreneurial or anything like that. So usually the less content on social media, the better. We want to know about what they're doing at the moment. If they're a student, are they unemployed? If they're running their own agency. If they are running their own agency, just kind of ignore the application and move on. What part of the world are they from? Get that information. Have a look how often they're traveling. This is vital to make sure that you can actually count on them. Get some. This is kind of the ads knowledge. So have a look on how much they've spent on Facebook ads or ads in general. Their experience, the difficult problems that they've worked with and how they solve them, which is the problem-solving aspect. Ask them if they ever think lying is permissible. This will really give you a good indication of how they operate with like different morals and how they are morally. And here, the biggest frustration with the previous boss, employer, or client. This is good information for two reasons. You can kind of see if they do something here, which is if they say something that is pretty normal and you wouldn't expect to be a frustration, then you will know that they are slightly more sensitive to different things potentially. But it's also good because you can use this information later. If they say the biggest frustration was their previous boss was micromanaging too much, then you can use that information and speak to them a little bit more in the interview about it. Ask them about their experiences. But most importantly, you could just make sure that you don't do the same things. As I said, as long as it makes sense. The third part here, and probably the most impressive and the best part about this whole job post, is the loom. And we want them to fill out a loom, or rather film a loom. We want to see how comfortable they are in front of the camera and how much time they take to do the loom. So for some people, they're going to just film a 1 minute or 2 minute loom. And to be honest, that's not really sufficient enough to actually answer the question I'm asking here, which is how does Facebook ads work on the inside? So the people that take their time with the loom and really give you the most information possible, I would say generally they're more eager to actually get the job and they're going to do a better, they've got better attention to detail and they're probably going to do a better job overall. After that, I've just got the simple contact information, asking them to give me their Facebook profile so I can go and send them a message afterwards and let them know what I think. Next is the shortlisting. So let me jump into that. Okay, now this is really exciting for me because everybody that I've shown this system to, this system of shortlisting, loves it. And I think it makes incredible sense. So I'm going to show you guys as well. First things first, I got about 35 applicants total. So let's say 34 because of this one at the top. So 34 applicants in total. And they came from a majority. These are the higher quality ones. The people that I actually ended up interviewing came from LinkedIn and a load of people from Facebook groups as well. But as I said, the person that I actually ended up hiring, he came from LinkedIn. And the most impressive people that I've got here, they did come from LinkedIn, which was paid. I was paying like £6 a day or something, which is like $8. It's not a lot, super cheap, but got some really good data here. I'm just going to move this out the way. Let's get that up there. So essentially what we've got here at the top are all of the questions that I asked in the application. And what I did is I've got the questions at the top here and I've got their answers below. So obviously, what part of the world are you from? We've got Africa, South America, Europe. Now, it doesn't really matter to me where they're from. But what does matter to me is let me backtrack actually, because there's a bunch of different colors here and I need to explain what those are. If there's green, it means that I'm really happy with the answer. If it's orange, it means it's kind of in the middle. Could be better. It's not perfect. And the way that I'm defining what's good and what's not good is based on my own expectations on what I believe to be a good fit versus not so great a fit. So essentially over here, for example, I classified anybody that's got under 50K in ad spend was a red, anybody above 100K was an orange, and anybody over 100K was green. So essentially here, obviously location doesn't matter, so they're all green. But this one here, for example, how many times did you travel last year? These ones here, 0, 0, 0, 2, they're great. I'm happy with that. But this one here was a red because they traveled 5 times. And if somebody's traveling 5 times in a year, it means that generally it's just going to be a little bit more difficult to take, to get in touch with them when they're traveling. Plus, there's the time zone issues. There's a bunch of different things. And just in general, I would prefer to work with somebody who's not traveling that often. In terms of the budgets, you can see all the people at the top had budgets. And by the way, the people at the top, the way that this is ranked, we'll get onto that later. But essentially, I interviewed these 3 people and this 4th person down here. This is crossed out because it turned out that, unfortunately, they had already been hired. I think that was the case, but we'll have a look at the notes in a moment and double check. Essentially, what I do is I go through answer by answer. As long as I'm happy with the answer, I will mark it green. If I'm really not happy with the answer, I'll mark it red. And if I'm, halfway, as I said before, then I'll mark it orange. Now, if I've marked it blue, quite simply, it means it's the best answer available, or the best answer in that column. And it's very rare that I actually mark things blue. It's just if something really kind of leaves me speechless or I'm really impressed by, then I will mark it blue. We go throughout and, we're color coding the entire thing, and then it gets to the ratings. Now, the way that the rating this side is very, very logical, where green is 1 point, orange is 0 points, and red is minus points. So this one has got 8 points because there's 8 greens, basically. And this one's got 7 points because there would have been 7 greens. The orange, as I said, is a 0, so it would have been 7 greens, and the orange doesn't make a difference. I then also watched over the looms, which took a while, but I watched over the majority of the looms. I gave them a little rating here, which wasn't quite in depth. I just said, which was the best, which was the second best, etc. And then if I needed to, I could have watched over. But I minimized that by making extreme comments, going through all of the different things that was mentioned, including good bits, bad bits. I try to keep this very logical, and I try not to get too personal with it, because really the whole reason that we're doing this stage in the application is for the technical aspects. So, for example, here, I mentioned about the stuff that I liked about it, and then I also mentioned what's missing. So, for example, this guy at the top, he didn't mention anything about the creatives, the offer, or the ad copy, so I made a note of it because they're quite important bits. And then I went ahead and continued here. Did I message them, interviewing, and progress? This is like a little CRM. It just helped me track the people that I'm interviewing or wasn't interviewing. So I messaged them all. I interviewed them all except this one here because, as said, there's another position in another agency, and then the progress. The last step of the shortlisting process is the interviews, and I'll go through this a lot quicker. I asked them a bunch of questions. These are all the questions that I asked them during the interviews. Obviously, I've blacked it out because it's most of them very personal information. But these are all of the questions. If you want to pause and steal them, you're welcome to do so. I was just basically asking a bunch of questions based on all of the things that I knew I wanted in a media buyer. So I'm asking here what the average retention rate is, so I know exactly that. What's that average retention rate? How often does a client drop off? Or what's the average time that a client will stick around? Obviously, if a client has stuck around with them for 7 months to a year, great. For me at my agency, I don't want any client dropping off before the 6-month mark. And soon I'm going to be pushing that even further to the 9 and then eventually 12-month mark. I've got 2 clients at the moment. My 2 longest relationships that I've got at the moment with the clients, it's June at the moment. So I've been with them for 7 months now, which I'm really happy with. But I know for a fact we're going to get that to 9 and potentially even the 12. So for me, it's a very big thing. Big thing. It's very important. And I want to make sure that their retention rate is good. And it also shows that they work well with clients, they got good relationships, and they get good results. Now, the next thing here that I want to touch on is what is their preferred way of payment? So I asked them there, how do they prefer to get paid? Because some people are going to expect a salary, especially if it's coming from LinkedIn, they expect just a regular salary. Others are going to be happy getting paid per month per client, which is the way that I recommend you go about it. After this, we got this is like, as you see, it's a culture fit. So we go over what kind of issues do they have when they work, how do they communicate with clients, and then some more personal questions. And I do kind of let them know here, like these next questions are going to be a little bit odd, but gives me a better understanding of who they are, and I'm transparent with that. And these are the questions I ask them. I ask them what motivates them most in life, whether money or growth is more important, and what's more important between money, stability, and flexibility. And this will give me a really good understanding of what they're looking for at the moment. Usually around this kind of questions here, they will say, they've got a family, so they want to provide for them, which is always a good thing because they've got dependents, people to rely on them, which generally means that they work a little bit harder. I mean, obviously I'm not a parent myself, but I know for a fact when you become a parent, you get this desire inside you where you're just like, I need to work harder for my children, which we all hear about, we all know about because from our own parents, etc. But that's something that I really like when they mention here. It doesn't change anything. I'll make that very clear. These questions do not change anything. It's just about me kind of working out a little bit more who they are as a person and what motivates them. The last question is the most important. Why don't you start a market or an advertising agency? And in this stage, you're going to hopefully hear people say, the reason I don't want to start an agency is because I'm not interested in sales, or I'm not interested in being the main client touch point. And they will say, I like the advertising. I like looking at the data. I like writing ad copy. I like doing the analytical stuff. That's the type of things that we want to hear here, at this stage. So those are all of the questions that I go through. To be honest with you, I didn't ask this question here, how do they learn best? Because obviously I'm expecting these people to know what they're doing. But if you're looking for a lower level kind of media buyer or a position, then this is a great question because it will help you produce training documents. If they tell you that they learn best through videos, then create videos. If they say that they learn best through a checklist, then create a checklist for them to follow. These questions are important as well. If you were hired, how soon could you start? And then obviously end it by asking if they have any questions for you. Now, if they do have any questions, answer in as much detail as possible. Be honest, open with them, because ultimately you want to kind of talk them away from joining you because you want to make sure that they are serious and they do want to work with you. If you just make this easy, then everybody's going to want to work with you, and it's not going to allow you to really sort the warriors, like the very best from the pack versus the rest. So keep that in mind. Great. So back to the Word document here. I'm going to speed through this just a little bit more to go through. Now, what do they look for in the interviews? Or what should you look for in the interviews, rather? Now, you want to make sure that they have conversational English. You want to make sure that they actually, they are able to articulate their thoughts and feelings well. And the reason that you want to do this is because when you're speaking to the clients and you've got something negative to tell the client, you need to make sure that they're able to articulate carefully what the issue is and especially what is being done to solve the problem. As long as this stuff is being communicated, then you're in a good position. But if they're not able to kind of communicate that effectively, then it does come with some issues there. So that's kind of that's why I kind of look for these things. I make sure that they can speak well. And I don't mind English being the second language. In fact, most of the times English will be the second language. But it's completely fine as long as you're able to speak to each other and for the majority of the time there aren't any issues, then they will be able to deal with things well. They will be able to speak to the clients, and really that's the main thing we're looking for here. Obviously, there's a company culture aspect where we want to make sure that these people are able to speak to you and you're able to have a good working relationship together. But to be honest, it's not the most important part. It's really just about making sure that they can speak to the clients and they're able to do so effectively. Next is, do they appear to be open and honest? Now, I've said appear here because we never know for a fact, but we really want to know, are they honest and stuff? Can they be upfront and open with me? If they are, then they're more likely to tell you in the future. You know, if there's something going on in their campaigns, they're going to speak to you about it. They're going to be upfront about it. They're going to know that they can come to you for your support. And that's really important to know about. Next is, can you imagine working with them? Now, when you're speaking to them, there is the fact that, again, it comes down to the personal attributes where you want to make sure that you can actually have a relationship with them. It's super important, especially if you want them around for the long run, which I do. I bring my media buyer on a trial run, but as long as we work well together and the results are good, I do want to keep them on for the long term and eventually bring them into the company. So like as a full-time member. So you want to really look at, can you imagine working with them? Are they the type of person that you would want to work with? And are they the type of person that eventually you want to grow the business with and keep them by your side pretty much as your right-hand man, because that's what they will be. And also, are they happy taking the time to answer the questions, or are they just rushing through trying to get to the next interview? Now, this goes back to what I mentioned before in the application stage. Are they, receptive to the questions? Do they give you as much detail as necessary? Or do they just try and skip through it? They give you blunt answers where it's just, you ask them about their experience and they say, I've been doing it for 10 years. I worked in ecom, and just leave it like that. Or do they go into more detail? Do they say to you, well, I started 10 years ago working at an advertising agency. I realized that I didn't like doing that, so I became a contractor. From there, I did X, Y, and Z. It's not so much about their social skills. It's really just looking at how much time they're willing to put into the interview and if they're willing to go through it. And a couple times during the interview, I will say to them, not much more now. I just want to ask a couple more questions. And most of the time they will either say, take your time. They say, yeah, no problem. But if they say, oh, good, because I've got to go. I mean, firstly, I don't think anybody would say something like that. But if they do, at least they're just trying to rush the process and they're probably not the best fit, because they're not really trying to get the job. They're just trying to get a job. And there's a big difference there. Next is, when you've made your decision and you've actually shortlisted someone, you've chosen somebody, what should you pay them? Now, as you saw in the interview questions, I do ask them what their expectations are. And what I want to make sure is that we're paying the media buyer less or around 50% of the client retainer. So obviously less is good. 50% is okay as well. If it's a little bit more, then that's fine as long as you're happy with it. In terms of a ROAS deal, if there is a ROAS deal, my recommendation is either keep that to yourself as the agency owner for getting the sales, for managing the business, and just use it to grow the business further, or set goals to be achieved, which is actually my preferred option here. You say to the media buyer, if there's a 6x ROAS with a 40,000 revenue, for example, then you'll get X amount as a bonus. And I would come up with this by kind of having a look at what you would expect to get from the ROAS deal, monetarily rise. So if your ROAS is, like if your return on ad spend, let's just say for argument's sake is 20,000, and let's say you get a 10% from that. So that's 2,000 there. You kind of got to decide what you would like to give away and what you think is, in some way, what you think is deserved as a bonus there. You don't want to give too much because then you're just giving away all of the ROAS, but just give a good amount. Make sure that they know that they can make more money by getting really good results, because essentially you want to be a results-driven agency that leads by the results that you get. The better results that you get, the better clients you're going to get, the better everything. Literally, the higher retainers you can sign, everything follows. So as long as you get good results, everything else that is to do with the business will improve as well. And as I said at the beginning of the video, everything is holistic. It just works as a whole. Next here is about onboarding. So we've only got these last 2 points here, but the next point here at number 5 is, as I said, how to onboard. So the way that I did this is I create a Google document just like this, or you can do a slideshow if you like, which is a company culture / onboarding document. And in this document, you want to set expectations that you have, things to note, and that's just like different things that you want to like basically welcome them to the business. You want to tell them a little bit about what you do, maybe the history, introduce them to other team members. If there are other people in the team, just include a picture and a little line about what they do. Tell them about what your role is and what you spend your time doing during the day. Geek out a little bit. If you like doing the ads as well, geek out a little bit about that. Just kind of let them know what you like about doing the ads, or about running, writing, etc. And go from there. You want to tell them about your working schedule. So essentially for me, I told my media buyer I'm mostly available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or Monday to Friday. But I also said, you know what, if I see a message on the weekend, I will get back to it. It's just that you should expect a quick response from me during the weekdays. And on the weekends, I might be a little bit longer to get back to. You also want to go over here, and I didn't mention this before, I didn't write it down, but communication, how often they should be communicating with you. For example, I told my media buyer I would like a message, at least 2 lines at the end of the workday to let me know what's working on the client accounts, what's not working so well, and most importantly, what we're doing to even further improve the performance. Next is the available support, and what I mean by this is let them know what you know. Let them know that you are available to support them during their time. Make sure that they know they're not alone with it and that you are there to help if need be, and you're not going to judge it, because you want them to come back to you if they have questions during the time, and you want to encourage feedback because that's how you grow a good, strong team. And as I said here, anything else that you feel is relevant. So literally anything that you feel is relevant to mention here, like KPIs. Tell them about the program if you got a program. For example, with us, our offer is really helping 6-figure fashion brands become 7-figure fashion brands within the 12 months. So anybody that's a 6-figure fashion brand but would like to get 7 figures, we basically do that in our program. That's kind of the offer. And when you've completed the onboarding, just send them this document after the call so they've got a copy of it. And you might want to record the call as well and give them a copy of that. Then, pretty obvious, add them to Slack or whatever communication channel that you use, and then let them know that you should only be using Slack for work communication and they shouldn't contact you anywhere else unless in an emergency. Next is sending the contract. Send them over the contract. Make sure they get that approved before you introduce them to anything sensitive with the client information. So the contract should include, your expectations for them, and you should also send them an NDA and non-disclosure agreement to make sure that they don't share any passwords or any, sensitive company data or anything like that. Next is adding them to the platform of choice. So in my case, Facebook ads, and in this particular client that he's working with on the trial is also Google. So I'm going to give him access to Facebook and Google. And then he has access to the platform. But make sure, as I said, you do this after you do the contract, or everything here is in line. Do one after the other. And then next, we want to send them a Loom video. So on the onboarding call, just give them a little brief overview of where the account is, but then send them a more in-depth Loom explaining where you're currently at the campaign, some struggles you are having, some difficulties, some of the good things. And ultimately, you want to set the expectation here that if there is something that's working well, you want to make sure that they don't turn it off, which should be pretty obvious. And you also, just want to tell them that you're really handing it over to them. Say that you do care about the results, so you will still play a part, but you will give them the freedom to do what they need to do. And then next here is handling client expectations. Now, this is slightly different. It's got nothing to do with the hiring, but I wanted to throw this in anyway because it's super important. And if you've been doing the ads yourself, you do want to let the client know that somebody else is going to do it, but you want to do that in a slower process just so you don't freak the client out at all, because if you make it sound like you're handing it over to a junior assistant or something, that doesn't sound good and they're not going to be happy with that. So the way that I would recommend you go about it is personally message the brand owner, let them know that you are bringing somebody in to the company, and that they will be there to support the campaigns. You want to make sure that you frame it in their benefit, because ultimately it is a benefit to them having the media buyer in who's going to focus on their work. And you want to let them know that you still will be working on that campaign, but you're getting somebody in to just support and further enhance the performance. As long as you do that, the client should be happy. You might want to save, if you've got a catch-up call that week, you might want to kind of delay the media buyer starting, speak to the brand owner or whoever it is of the company that owns the company that you speak to. And you just want to kind of share with them, look, I'm not leaving. I'm still going to be around. I'm still going to be accessible on Slack. I'm still going to be on the coaching, the catch-up calls rather. But just let them know that there's somebody else that's coming in that will have an even closer eye day in, day out, making sure that you can really enhance the performance and get there as possible, get the results as good as possible. So that is pretty much the entire process. If you have stuck around here, I want to applaud you, because with 40 minutes in, I didn't even think it would be this long. I expected it like 20 minutes or so, but I get it. I guess I went into a lot of detail here and really gave. I really feel like I haven't left anything unturned, and I've really given every single stage possible, which was my goal. I wanted to make sure that this is the only video that anybody ever will need to watch about how to hire a media buyer from beginning to end, including the onboarding and including dealing with the clients, because those are incredibly important parts of the process. So what I'm going to do here is end the video, but this, I'll be honest, like this has, although I created it today for the video, there is going to be a very similar version of this, just probably in just slightly more detail, and actually more in detail, because I'm going to give away different bits, but that will be in the program that I'm creating at the moment, Agency Automation. So if you do want to hear more about that, just type below, just comment Agency Automation. I will send you a message, and I'm happy to get on a call and show you the rest of the program. Obviously, this is just one module of it. This is just one part of it. The mentorship is going to be one-to-one, but this is just one of the things that's mentioned in it. So if you got value here, if you enjoyed it, let me know down below. If you liked it, if there's anything that you feel could be added to this, I'm always looking to improve it. I know there's always ways to improve it, but really, I think that this is the most no-brainer way of getting a media buyer involved. So I hope this video was valuable. I hope you got good value about it. Let me know down below how you found the video, and I'll see you in the next one.